If they have too many assets that they can't protect, so they would lose it in a Chapter 7, so they file a 13 instead. You're making installment payments on, say, like a car loan, it shoots right back up, like way higher than it was before. Supporting documents that was sent, they want to know if it's a true and correct copy of, for example, your tax return.
Hello everyone, my name is Mehran Fardis. I'm representing a law firm called Care Law Group, and a main chapter of this law firm is representing bankruptcy clients and bankruptcy cases. I've known Lennie since our law school days. We've been friends for over 10 years. I have great confidence in what she does, and I wanted to introduce you to Lennie to explain about her work.
Hi, I'm Lennie. I moved here to San Diego from Las Vegas, and that's when I met Mehran from law school. Right when I passed the bar, I started doing bankruptcy, because that's what came through the door to start. And that was like January 2011, and we're in May 2020 now.
Tell us a little bit about the uniform. Why are you having a uniform?
I am a JAG, U.S. Army Reserve officer.
Actually, you just became captain.
I just became captain.
There you
this
go,
rank
yeah.
is wrong.
So how do you know the rank? Where is the rank?
They teach us that at direct commission schools right here. So I could remove it and change it to captain whenever I go by the patch.
So that stripe is an officer?
Is a first lieutenant.
First lieutenant.
Yeah.
And what does the captain look like?
It's
two stripes? Two stripes?
Yeah, 2 stripes.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So you're an attorney with the U.S. Army?
Yes.
Okay.
Attorney with the Army.
What do you do there?
Just legal assistance. So whatever help any soldier needs to be prepared to not think about any legal issues while they are in battle.
Oh, okay.
You know.
I see. So it's not like there's a legal conflict inside Army between two parties and you're representing.
Sometimes, court martials, but I'm not there yet.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So how's the experience?
I love it. I actually recommend it to people in law school now.
How often do you meet with clients or soldiers and consult with them?
As a reserve officer, you only have to meet them 1 weekend out of the month and 2 weeks over the summer. That's like our minimum commitment. And then you just volunteer for whatever other jobs.
That's wonderful.
If you're active duty, you're obviously on the base the whole time.
If I lose some weight, I could be going to Army.
You can go. So as a lawyer, they put you into direct commission school. Like you go as a lieutenant already, and then you go through like a boot camp and a JAG school, and it's.
I have to lose some weight.
And I have to get an age waiver.
Age waiver?
Yeah.
What's the age? I just turned 68. Does that count?
Well, maybe if you get a little write-off, but I know you're not 68.
So we want to talk about bankruptcy today. Now that we know you're an Army attorney.
Yeah, and my part-time, so my civilian job is a bankruptcy.
How long have you been doing bankruptcy?
I've been doing bankruptcy since I became eligible, so like
9 years.
Yeah, January 2011.
Okay, and so why is this a good time to be a bankruptcy attorney?
Well, we're probably going to hit another recession here, right?
Right.
Nobody's working.
Yes.
Well, some people are working the essentials, and gosh, people aren't able to pay their bills. They're freaking out right now. I'm getting a lot of calls myself.
So you started 2011-12. How was the situation at that time, the bankruptcy situation?
It was like nearing the end of that like 2008 like financial crisis. So these people were still getting foreclosed on, but it was tapering off, and so that's what came through my door a lot.
So what do you anticipate in this market coming up? What type of bankruptcy claims? What type of, is it going to be businesses, families? Is it going to be individuals, employees laid off? What kind of crowd do you expect coming first? What's the first wave?
I think right now, businesses, right? Because their businesses are closed. A lot of them are just going to shut down.
The merchant loans are coming up. You can't pay them. You have bills. You have to pay rent, and you have to decide what I'm going to do.
People can't come in to their businesses. They're not making any money.
Yes.
They still have rent.
I have no idea how this is going to work, because the is going to be a massive thing. It's not just one or two. It's going to be every business impacted.
And every business is going to change too.
Yes.
You know, so maybe they'll have less overhead because we can't have as many people inside a restaurant, for example.
That's true.
Yeah.
So are these mostly Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 filings?
I do 7s and 13s.
Okay.
I think we'll probably do a lot of Chapter 7 filings
Okay.
because they just had no.
It's a personal guarantor of a loan or credit, so they have to.
Yeah, they personally guaranteed it.
Right.
If there's no thing where the banks forgive these loans or put things in the end, then yeah, everyone's just gonna have to.
Can you just briefly tell us what Chapter 7 means?
Yeah, it's a liquidation. So
Okay.
So basically, the bankruptcy court will look at your unprotected assets, and whatever's unprotected, they'll liquidate it and give it to all of your creditors.
Okay.
But like I was saying earlier, people move to California to file bankruptcy sometimes because we have the best bankruptcy protection.
It's a consumer kind of a personal.
Yeah, so they can protect all their assets, and once they file Chapter 7, no creditors get anything because everything's protected.
What state would you say is the worst place for bankruptcy?
Oh, I don't really know.
Or one of the tough states for bankruptcy.
I don't really know the
Probably,
protections in other
I think
states.
Texas is a very business friendly state. So
Yeah.
besides the point, what do you need to qualify for Chapter 7?
In 2005, there was a law, a rule, just like all this legislation on bankruptcy because people were just filing whatever, it didn't matter what their income was. But now there's what's called a means test, and they
Okay.
look at the income, and you need to have, for your household size in your county, you have to be below the median income.
Okay.
So for example, if 2 people lived in a house in San Diego County, then they would look at the median income in San Diego County for 2 people in that house, and you have to come in below that.
What is the means
About 10%.
test now here in Canada, in San Diego?
I don't know what it
Like
is
the
at
median income,
moment.
what would it be?
It changes like every year, so right now it might be near 50
Okay.
Um,
Per individual.
for in, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you have to be below that amount.
Right, so that's the first like income test, and then
Okay.
after that, there's all these like deductions you're able to take for taxes, maybe child care, health.
What else do you need to qualify? Besides being under the mean test.
So you have to be under the means test, and then the other thing you need to look at is whether your assets can be protected,
Okay.
right? Like, can you protect
Right.
your car? Is your car paid off? Do you have equity in your home? And then you have to decide if you have a lot of equity, if you're comfortable with the bankruptcy court and trustee maybe selling your assets to pay the creditors.
What assets are protected?
Are not?
Are. What is protected?
Right, there's a wild card protection that gives you, maybe $29,000 of
Okay.
protection to whatever you want to put it on.
Personal
But,
stuff.
Yeah, anything
TV.
worth anything,
Okay.
like you would want to protect it. But
Okay.
like, so personal stuff, let's say like furniture, appliances, they
Okay.
might have they do have their own bankruptcy code protection. Like, so
I see. It's not part of it.
yeah, you don't have to use that for the wild card. Cars have like maybe 5,000 or 6,000, but then
Okay.
you can add wild card to that if your car is expensive.
Okay.
But
What about cash?
cash, you would put that under the wild card protection.
So
Right.
up to what? 30 grand cash? You
Yeah,
could.
yeah, about coming up to 30 grand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is this sense of being like bankruptcy doesn't sound very good. Like people think if you file for bankruptcy, this is a failure or there's a problem with that or it's going to. It's a stigma, a social stigma. Can you tell us why this is not the case? Why bankruptcy actually is a good thing?
Oh yeah, it puts you in a much better position. If you're in a lot of debt, you're really using your credit for so many things. Your money has to go to all these bills.
Right.
It makes it harder for you to make these payments. You're going to be under all this credit card debt. you keep making payments and you'll never pay it off because of
Yes.
the interest.
Yes.
Maybe you can't afford to make more than minimum payments and
Yes.
you'll never get anywhere.
Yes.
But I find that when you file bankruptcy, maybe you take about 150 point hit on your score, but then within a year, if you're making installment payments on, say, like a car loan,
Right.
it shoots right back up, like way higher than it was
Okay.
before. You're less of a risk because now you have no other debts to
Right.
pay, right? So not all landlords know this, but sometimes we just let the landlord know if the debtor is trying to move into a place like, hey, his money's not going anywhere else except to that
Right.
rent,
Right.
Um,
How long does it stay on your record?
it stays on your credit report for about 10 years,
Okay.
depending on the credit reporting agency.
Okay.
Some of them, they get rid of it faster. They just take it off, but usually 10 years, and then you can't file again for 8 years. You can't get another bankruptcy discharge.
What other disadvantages do you see with filing a bankruptcy?
Well, I find that if you're in like
I guess what's holding people back?
they
if
think
that
that
protection is there, why aren't you
Yeah.
taking advantage of it?
they think that like, hey, I got into this debt, I need to pay it, and that sometimes they don't realize how much they have paid
Yeah.
with the interest, right? That's what I typically see. They're like really trying to
Do
cover
you
this.
lay down these numbers once a client comes to you? Do you show them, listen, here's what you're paying, this is the interest you're gonna
The
pay,
interest is out.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
and
yeah.
that's what you're gonna gain out of it.
Right.
Do you do that?
Yeah, we do that just
Okay.
because they don't understand and they
Right.
think that they're doing, hey, like I'm responsible for this, I signed for that, but like I think some of these banks and creditors are taking advantage.
Yes, for sure. I heard about this new Chapter 5 section that's coming up. It's for retail. Have
Really?
you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, I think it's a new. It's just because this situation right now, what's going on, they came up with a new code,
I
Chapter 5.
know they had to come up
Right.
with something for this. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
They
it's
had-
interesting.
Yeah.
So, to ease the mind of a client when they come to you, they're obviously distressed. This is not a good
Yeah.
time. When people come to a bankruptcy attorney, something is not going right.
Right.
A lot of times, inadvertently, it's not something they made. Right now, these stores are closed. They didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
The economy shut down.
Yeah.
So, what do you say first to the client? How do you put their mind at ease?
Well, I've had clients come in just like crying, right? Like just in tears because they can't afford anything. They can't
Right.
pay their bills, and now creditors are going after them. And I just let them know bankruptcy is very powerful. It like stops everything. It stops all the creditors. No one can no one can kick you out of your house. No one can just take your car from you, and it gives you time to like put everything back in order in your life. And
So when the client comes to you, let's say they sign up, they start the process, and what's the next step? How are the creditors notified, and how do they stop contacting the clients from that point on?
it's interesting, once a bankruptcy case is filed, a lot of these creditors and banks have this like some system that automatically notifies them, and once they know, they're not allowed to contact the client at all.
Okay.
But also, once you file, the bankruptcy court sends notices to all the creditors because you list all the creditors in your bankruptcy petition,
Right.
so everybody knows. If they don't know, the client will inform them, and they cannot call you anymore. If they call you, they're breaking the law, and you could sue them.
So what is the role of a bankruptcy trustee?
He's the one who is looking for assets, to say, hey, it's like he's a detective almost.
Okay.
He's looking at the petition that we file, he's looking at the supporting documents, and he's looking to see if there's any other assets, because he's looking to try to pay the creditors.
Okay. So the bankruptcy attorney works on behalf of the court
Who's
or creditors. Who hires this guy?
the debtor, the client comes in, the debtor, the person who's in debt comes in and hires the bankruptcy attorney.
What about the trustee?
And the trustee basically represents the creditors.
Okay.
Like
Where does the trustee come from? Who appoints the trustee?
the trustee there's a U.S. trustee's office
Okay.
here in San Diego, and every place has.
Can you choose your trustee, or is it assigned by the court?
It's randomly assigned.
Okay.
So if we file a case here, there's like 6 trustees in San Diego, and you don't know who you're gonna get.
Okay.
Being an attorney, a bankruptcy attorney for a while, you understand their personalities and how
Right.
aggressive they are looking
Right.
for assets and where they like to look. Right.
What is their background usually? What's the trustee's background?
Lawyers.
They're lawyers.
Yeah, they're lawyers, accountants,
Okay.
both.
And what, generally, what amount of time from the time a client files for Chapter 7 or whatever up to the point where the trustee closes the case
But, yeah.
and they basically just have to make payments from that point on? How much time does that take?
Wow, it's really good here in San Diego. I find that it's not as good other places. It's like clockwork here. We file a Chapter 7 case. About 30 days later, there's a meeting of creditors where the trustee is going to ask your client, the debtor, questions under penalty of perjury, just making sure the petition is correct.
Okay.
And it allows creditors to come to also say, hey, I know you have other assets. So there's 30 days there. And then another 60 days after that, open for creditors to object to the discharge. So that's like 90 days.
Okay.
At the end of 90 days, they should get a discharge.
Okay.
Unless there's assets that need to be given.
So you're dealing with the trustee for maybe 90 days?
Usually 90 days.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 months.
At this creditor's meeting in 30 days, who is at that meeting?
It's just your client.
Okay.
Well, there are many other debtors on the same calendar, and the trustee, and you come in with your client, and they ask the questions, and they'll ask the room, because it's a public hearing, is anybody here on this case or this matter?
Right.
And then it seldom ever happens, but sometimes there are creditors there. That's why it's called a meeting of creditors, for the creditors to come and ask.
Okay.
Ask your client, hey, what about this asset? Or remember when I gave you this loan, you said you had this asset.
Right. I see.
But it doesn't always happen.
Okay.
Right.
So generally, it's the trustee, it's the client, it's
And
the attorney,
Yeah.
and obviously the judge.
And that no judge. No
No
judge
judge.
at the meeting of creditors.
Oh,
It's just
okay.
a meeting.
Okay.
If this requires a hearing, doesn't some cases no hearing ever. They'll never see the judge. A judge assigned to the case, but they'll never see a judge.
So you mentioned that you do mostly Chapter 7 and Chapter 13.
Right.
What is Chapter 13?
Chapter 13 is more of a debt reorganization. So it's people who do have regular income and they get paychecks.
Okay.
And what you end up doing is you make a budget and a plan for these creditors to get paid back according to what your client can afford over 36 to 60 months. And at the end of that 36 to 60 months, the rest of the debt just gets discharged like in a Chapter 7.
Oh, it's like a debt settlement, but in a legal process.
And oftentimes people choose it if their income's too high for a Chapter 7, or if they have too many assets that they can't protect, so they would lose it in a Chapter 7, so they file a 13 instead, and the amount that the creditors would receive in a Chapter 7 is what needs to get paid into the bankruptcy plan.
And does Chapter 13 stay on your credit as much as Chapter 7, or is it a different process?
It
Same
does.
process?
Yeah, same process.
Okay.
It's longer because you're in it. You're in it for 3 to 5 years.
Right. So
Yeah.
does the clock start running from the time you file, or does it start running from the time you finish your
You
payments?
finish.
So when you finish your payments, after that you have another 10 years
Yeah.
for
Because
this to finish.
discharge to discharge,
Okay.
so if there's like 8 years in between that you can get another.
Okay. So Chapter 7 is for personal if you meet the means test and you have a certain, you meet the other criteria that the court requires.
Mhm.
And you said every state is different, and Chapter 13 is you have a higher income,
Yep.
and it helps
Or
you realize.
assets you can't protect and that you want to
Good.
keep.
What is, obviously every attorney is different, but what is generally the fee for a bankruptcy attorney?
It's different from city to city.
Right.
They're just looking, so in a Chapter 7, they're just looking for whatever the reasonable rate is. And I looked this up recently. I think in San Diego County, it's usually like $1,500 to $1,800.
This is attorney's fees.
Attorney's fees.
Okay.
But the bankruptcy court charges $335
Right.
filing fee.
Okay.
And then in San Diego, the average that you'll see on the paperwork here, everyone charges about the same, about $3,900. Unless it's a very complicated case and the court would find it reasonable for an attorney to charge more. It's like a very complicated case.
So you're looking at $2,000 to $4,000 for attorney's fees to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Yes. And how do most attorneys get paid? Up front, during the
Yeah.
process, at the end?
In a Chapter 7, you have to get paid up front.
Okay.
If you're not paid up front and they file, now you're a creditor and they don't have to pay you.
I see.
Like there's no obligation, and you cannot collect from them anymore.
Okay.
In a Chapter 13 plan, you can get paid a little bit up front, and then throughout the plan, you get paid like the rest of the creditors.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is are attorneys flexible with their fees? Because I mean, if somebody's going through bankruptcy, they obviously have a problem paying their bills for whatever reason.
Right.
Are attorneys flexible with the terms of payments or anything, or is this like a set
I don't
thing?
think typically the attorneys are very flexible. They like, this is the amount.
Okay.
Pay it before we file because they're not going to get paid. They
Right.
need to get paid for their work. Maybe they'll allow the person to make payments, but they're not going to file it until it's paid in full.
What if a client in 6 months has a question for you? The filing has been completed, discharge is in place, but people have questions, something went wrong.
Yeah.
Can they come back to an attorney?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We're always like stay
Right.
available for.
That's wonderful.
clients.
Do you feel like you have a cordial, good relationship with most of your clients?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it is a hard time of life. I mean, you're basically helping someone in a very tough
Right.
situation in life, and when they come out of it, they feel probably better.
Right. Yeah. Feel
Yes.
better. And
That's wonderful. So I'm still a little more interested about understanding how the creditors meeting with the trustee work, because this is going to be a big thing for a lot of clients. They want to know what is it that the court and the trustee wants to know from them. What are the questions? So what are the points at the 341 meeting, which is, you mentioned 30 days after filing will be the trustees meeting. What do clients need to be on notice for that meeting?
there's variations probably from bankruptcy court to bankruptcy court.
Okay.
Here, they swear you in. They want you to tell them under penalty of perjury that the petition is correct. Are all the assets listed? All the assets you have? Are all the creditors listed? Is the income correct? Has anything changed? Supporting documents that was sent, they want to know if it's a true and correct copy of, for example, your tax return.
Okay.
Behind the trustee, you see this big sign that says U.S. Trustee and FBI to let you know that they're looking into you. Don't lie. They'll
Yes.
ask, are there any other assets, any property? They just want to get you under penalty of perjury, letting them know that there's no other property. And we ask them too before we go there, but sometimes the trustee found something or realized something that the debtor didn't disclose or didn't think they had to disclose.
Good. One more question is, everybody's concerned about their credit. In this country, credit is very important. So everybody understands bankruptcy will reduce your credit, and as you mentioned, within a year or so, it will go back up. What do you think clients should be proactively taking steps on to improve their credits going forward?
So after the bankruptcy, all that old debt is gone. All the credit cards are closed. You have basically nothing.
Okay.
I have found that if someone has a car loan, an installment note that they're making regular payments on, that's when their score is going to come right back up within a year and a half.
Okay.
If they don't do anything, it's much slower, but paying an installment on like a car loan makes a huge difference.
What about mortgage?
Mortgage would help too.
Okay.
But what happens here, and it's not the same in all districts.
Right.
They won't allow you to reaffirm your old mortgage because they don't want you to stay liable on such a big debt. Reaffirm means sign that contract all
Right.
over again. So if you go into a bankruptcy with already a car loan and a mortgage, you can sign that contract all over again to keep that car note, and that's going to help your credit. But here in San Diego, the judges don't let you reaffirm a mortgage because they don't want you to not be able to pay it.
Right.
And then-
Back to where you started.
Yes. all that debt. But I'm not really sure what other districts do.
How long do you think after discharge can a client start getting new credit cards?
They're going to come to the clients right away because they know that client can't file bankruptcy again. So they just rush like, hey, have these cards, get these car loans, but the interest is very high.
Okay.
But to help their credit, maybe it's worthwhile to get that car loan and make payments and then just refinance it within a year because it'll make the credit score go up.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your time. This was a great session. It was an intro Lennie is our counsel in our firm, and she'll be the person helping us with bankruptcy related matters. Anything else you want to add?
No.